Howdy, government class. I had Hulk up there so you could look at something more interesting than a big guy sitting down. This is how we're going to try and run class over the next couple of weeks, since the governor pushed the big red button and closed schools till God knows when. So I'm going to send you some questions. You've probably already received that email. It's going to be on that Civic Life document. Should be pretty straightforward. I'm going to give you a video where we talk over the answers to those questions and I present any other material I need to. I'm going to make myself available via email and text and whatever for questions. And then finally, I'm going to send you along some sort of assessment to do along with that. We'll keep doing that until we can go back to our normal routine in the classroom. And I'll try and make the videos as amusing as possible. Hence Hulk. You get it. All right, first thing they say is to maintain a certain amount of normality. So in the interest of that normality, if Marjorie and Willow could say something to upset Mahaly, and Mahaly, you could wave your hands and say, oh my God, that would help. Also, if John, you could do your travel dance, that's great. Okay, thank you very much. So what I'd like to do is you should have done the questions. That's called Civic Life Getting Involved Basics. There's 5 of them. And I want to talk over the answers to those things. First thing was, why do we need citizens to involve themselves in local government and civic groups? It's pretty straightforward. I mean, the American system doesn't work without people being involved. Now, we've talked about the government side, looked at the selectmen's debates and all of that. But to talk about civic groups, the civic groups are how the United States deals with the sort of everything else. Government has some specific functions, it does those things, but that leaves a lot of other stuff. So a lot of this organizing, the community events, the charity, that kind of thing happens outside of the government control in civic groups. Something along the lines of the Red Cross. The Red Cross is a civic group. It has some ties to the government, but it's a civic group. Without it, we would have some pretty serious problems. I mean, the blood supply is largely collected through their efforts. So that's just one example of how this would work. That's question 1. Question 2, what did Alexis de Tocqueville notice about voluntary associations in the U.S.? He basically noticed just that Americans had a pretty simplified form of government, but that members of society banded together to do various jobs and make it a better place. And you've seen that. You live in Lincoln and Woodstock. It is full of people doing that sort of thing. I'm sure you could come up with dozens of examples if you were here. Okay. Question 3 was to explain some of the different voluntary associations that are active in the United States. You could have come up with hundreds of examples. The Red Cross is one. The Linwood PTSA is another one. You could talk about, the Booster Club. You could talk about Rotary. You could talk about the Lions Club. There's literally too many for me to go through in this video, but I'm sure you were able to find a fistful of them. The one thing I would say is make sure in answering that question you haven't put down strictly government organizations. That's sort of a different category. All right. Question number 4. What local government posts are available to citizens of Littleton and Woodstock? Lincoln and Woodstock, my bad, Littleton, jeez. You pretty much know that, right? Selectmen, school board, planning board, that kind of thing. We talked about that a lot last week. That question was sort of a holdover from last year when I used this. So as long as you know those things, it's good review. All right. Give examples of both voluntary and mandatory civic duties. We've talked about this one too. Voluntary, voting, helping out your neighbors, getting involved in civic organizations. Mandatory, following the laws, paying taxes, that sort of thing. All right. So now I want to move on to that next section, talking about the voluntary organizations. The challenge, and some of you have started this and some of you haven't. This may be a little bit review for some of you because I got into it in one class, not the other because of the time. Basically, what's going on here is I want you to develop your very own organization for the community. Now, obviously, you don't actually have to do this, but think about this as a thought exercise. If I was going to develop an organization to deal with a problem or a need or something you think the community could use, how would I go about it? So I'm not going to read everything over. You're more than capable of reading. If not, we have some problems. But I've got 5 questions there to help guide you when you're developing this. And it's, what does it do? Where does the resources come from? All that kind of thing. I want you to really spend some time doing this. If you write these questions down immediately and do little teeny short answers, it's not going to go very well. Make sure you spend a lot of time thinking about it. Doesn't have to answer them in sentences, just sort of bust down a list of notes because you're going to need it for the next step. Once you've done 1 through 5 and really gotten yourself a nice pile of thoughts to work with, what I want you to do is to write 3 to 4 paragraphs, a page-ish, maybe 2, about what is your organization, and explain what need it's going to fill in the community, and in detail how you're going to make it work. You need to think about where that money's coming from. You need to think about who's going to be doing the work of this organization. You need to think about who the target audience is, who are the people that you're fixing their need. You're going to need to think about all that stuff. The more detail, the better. I've heard a lot of ideas thrown out on this one over the years. You could talk about, I've heard people talk about fixing potholes or helping, young teenagers buy cars because it's very hard to exist up here without cars. I have heard of all sorts of ideas. Go ahead and think of something that you think would work. This doesn't have to be a life or death need. This could be something that you just think would make Lincoln a better place. Maybe it's to offer some new recreational opportunity or something like that. Okay, so the essay that describes your organization will be due on Wednesday, I think. I'm going to post this video in the middle of your quote-unquote week off. It's available for you to work on, but I think we can get this done by next Wednesday. I'll put official dates and all that in the email as well. Okay, if you have any questions, I'll be posting contact information for you. I hope you are all well. And hope to hear from you soon. Hey, look, there's Hulk. Maybe.